Voter turnout in the 2025 federal election was higher than it had been in decades. It was probably between 83 and 84%, reaching a record high since reunification. A high voter turnout is said to strengthen democracy in a country. The fellow citizen decides through the elections about the future balance of power in the Bundestag. And the more people participate, the better the elections reflect the interests of the citizens. Parties mainly try to win long-term voters. So some parties have wisely realized that they can largely shift their election propaganda to the internet in order to reach active, still shaping young people whose opinions have not yet been set in stone for decades. On social media, viral, eye-catching videos have more impact than dry articles about the election program. This tactic apparently proved successful in the numbers as well. Maybe more and more people consider voting to be a more meaningful decision for a better country and coexistence. It is always postulated that every eligible voter really should vote. That is clearly understandable. Not participating can lead to higher shares for other, perhaps undesirable parties with the same number of votes. Imagine there are 100 eligible voters. All 100 go to vote. Party X received 20 votes, so 20% of the total votes. But if instead only 50 out of the 100 eligible voters go to vote, Party X with the same 20 votes has 40% of the total votes. Non-voters hold opinions but don't express them, remaining unnoticed. Unnoticed, so if there's a party you believe could really make a difference, your vote counts. But that's only one perspective. While for some it's a privilege to have a say in what happens in a country, others believe that elections don't really lead to any real change in welfare. If elections had any meaning, they wouldn't let us hold them. Mark Twain. Politicians are just actors on the stage, but who writes the script? Do you really have a choice, or are you just allowed to vote? The former German cabaret artist Volker Pispers described the situation as follows. If you can't determine the direction of a train, it doesn't matter who the engineer is. We have to stop the train instead of electing a new engineer every 4 years. No policies are made for the common people, no matter what coalitions are formed. What has really changed in the last 30 to 40 years regarding pensions, national debt, education, health, taxes, and unemployment? We're not talking about plastic caps that are now attached to single-use bottles. We're talking about real reforms that significantly improve the situation of our fellow citizens. But we're always led to believe that there's progress. But what does the citizen really feel? Are we living in a pseudo-democracy? Why do people believe that politics only benefits the wealthy, while it puts even more burden on low-income earners? Capital grows faster than labor income. Thomas Piketty showed in his book Capital in the 21st Century that the return on capital is often higher than economic growth in the long run. That is a fundamental problem. Labor income is taxed higher than capital gains like stocks, profits, or inheritances in most countries. During inflation, people with low incomes lose more purchasing power. Tangible assets like real estate, for example, increase in value instead, which helps the wealthy. In Germany, in the 1990s, the top tax rate was still at 53%. When we got the red-green government in 1998, there was great hope that the absurd redistribution from the bottom to the top would finally stop. What did this government do first back then? They lowered the tax rate to 45%. This relieved the wealthy, while average earners still had a high tax burden. Furthermore, for example, in 2007, under the Christian Democratic Union Social Democratic Party coalition, the value-added tax was increased from 16 to 19%. At first, it seems like it would affect everyone equally. But you have to take a closer look. Consumption is necessary for everyone, but low-income earners spend a larger portion of their income on consumption. So they are more affected by this increase. Furthermore, the abolition of the wealth tax. In 1997, it was suspended and has not been reintroduced since, for reasons that are not really understood. Privatization of apartments to large investors, more ownership for the investors, while rents for the average person are rising. One could go on with measures that make the rich even richer, put more and more pressure on the middle class, and make the poor even poorer. Support for the rich demands on the little guys. Where does all this lead? Volker Pispers warns about capitalism in its final stage, as is the case in America. The rich have completely withdrawn. Private residential areas with fences, security personnel, and their own educational and healthcare facilities. The middle class needs 2 jobs at the same time just to get by. The bottom third is completely down and out, homeless or living in neighborhoods where even the police don't dare to go anymore. 95% of all American media is in the hands of 5 wealthy families. These things are beginning to feel familiar. We're heading in that direction, and we can't stop this train. This brings us back to the beginning, to the fundamental, sometimes controversial questions. How right is it, after all, to give every eligible voter a choice? The best argument against democracy is a 5-minute conversation with an average voter. I don't believe in the collective wisdom of individual ignorance. Despite everything, we have a good standard compared to many other countries. A concept developed by humans may never be completely flawless. If there are some flaws in the system, there will always be people who try to selfishly find their own way. Today, every person in Germany is born with nearly 30,000 euros of national debt. So it's no wonder that we are born into this capitalist mindset. Thank you very much. Subtitled by Deutsches Fernsehen 2020.